Come along for the ride.
Welcome to the Solar Coaster, the wild ride to the solar industry told by the people living it every day. I'm Anna Covert.
And I'm Alex Herrera.
Imagine standing in front of a massive, heavily fortified vault. Inside is the one thing every major corporation on Earth suddenly desperately needs to survive the next decade: clean, renewable energy. You have the money, you have the corporate mandate, and you are ready to buy. But there is a catch. The line to get into this vault is wrapping around the block, the bouncers keep changing the entry rules, and the price of admission is going up by the minute. If you step out of line to tie your shoe, you lose your spot entirely.
That is probably the most accurate description of the United States renewable energy market right now. It is a complete paradox. On one hand, we are seeing unprecedented investment, massive policy support, and solar and wind projects popping up everywhere. But on the other hand, for a corporate buyer trying to actually secure that power, it is an absolute labyrinth. The overarching message echoing through the industry right now is incredibly urgent. It boils down to this: act fast or get left in the dark.
And that urgency is exactly what we are unpacking today. Why are buyers being told to sprint in a market that is supposed to be expanding? Because on the surface, it does not make sense. We hear about record-breaking solar installations and massive wind farms. It feels like we are living in an era of green energy abundance. Why the panic?
The panic comes from a massive collision between skyrocketing demand and brutal structural bottlenecks. Yes, we are generating more renewable energy than ever before, but think about who is suddenly sitting at the table. It is no longer just a few progressive tech companies trying to green their office buildings. You have massive industrial players, manufacturing facilities returning to the US, and the absolute elephant in the room: artificial intelligence and data centers.
The AI boom. It is impossible to ignore. Every time someone generates an image or asks a chatbot to write a poem, a server somewhere is spinning up and drawing power. And these tech giants have made incredibly strict zero carbon pledges. They cannot just plug into a coal plant to run their AI models.
Exactly. We are talking about single data center campuses that require hundreds of megawatts, sometimes over a gigawatt of power. To put that in perspective, a gigawatt is roughly the capacity of a nuclear reactor, and these tech companies need that power yesterday. They are sweeping through the market, signing power purchase agreements, or PPAs, at a blistering pace. They have the capital, they have the dedicated energy procurement teams, and they are buying up the best renewable projects before anyone else even knows those projects exist.
So if you are a mid-sized manufacturer or a retail chain or even a city municipality trying to hit your sustainability goals, you are suddenly bidding against the deepest pockets in human history. That alone explains the need to act fast. But the complexity part of the equation goes deeper than just high demand, right? Even if you win the bidding war, you cannot just flip a switch and get the power.
Not at all. Yeah, winning the contract is just the beginning of the headache. The biggest roadblock in the entire system right now is the grid itself. We have a system called the interconnection queue. When a developer wants to build a new solar or wind farm, they have to apply to connect it to the regional power grid. They need studies to ensure the grid can handle the extra power without blowing out transformers or causing blackouts.
Which sounds perfectly reasonable in theory. You do not want to break the grid.
In theory, yes. In practice, it is a nightmare. The queues are so backlogged that projects are waiting 3, 4, sometimes 5 years just to get the permission to connect. It is like a massive traffic jam on a single lane highway. You have thousands of sports cars, these shiny new renewable projects just sitting in park, idling, waiting for the toll booth operator to wave them through. And because of this delay, a huge percentage of these projects end up dying in the queue. The financing falls through or the local permits expire.
That is a brilliant analogy, but also deeply frustrating. So, as a buyer, when you sign a contract for a solar farm that is supposed to be built next year, you are actually taking on a massive risk that the project might get stuck in traffic and never arrive.
Precisely. And that is why the market has shifted from a buyer's market to a seller's market. A few years ago, a corporate buyer could demand incredibly favorable terms. They could lock in a low fixed price for 20 years and shift all the development risk onto the builder. If the project was delayed, the builder paid a penalty. Today, the developers hold all the cards. They know there are 10 other buyers waiting in the wings. So they are telling buyers, if you want this power, you have to share the risk.
What does that shared risk actually look like in practice? Are buyers essentially subsidizing the chaos of the supply chain?
In many ways, yes, we are seeing the rise of indexed pricing, where the cost of the power is tied to inflation or the cost of raw materials. We are seeing flexible commercial operation dates, meaning the buyer just has to accept that the project might be a year late without getting any financial compensation. And we are seeing severe supply chain constraints. High voltage transformers, the massive pieces of equipment needed to step up the power for the grid, have lead times of up to 3 or 4 years right now.
3 to 4 years just for a transformer. That completely shatters the illusion that the transition to green energy is just a software problem we can code our way out of. We are dealing with heavy metal, mining, shipping routes, and brutal physical realities. Which brings up an interesting paradox. The US government recently poured unprecedented billions into green energy through tax credits and incentives. Was that not supposed to make this easier?
It made it more lucrative, which paradoxically made it more chaotic in the short term. The incentives acted like blood in the water. It triggered a massive gold rush of developers trying to build projects to capture those tax credits. But the physical infrastructure, the grid, the transformer factories, the permitting offices did not scale up at the same speed. So you have a flood of capital hitting a bottleneck of physical reality.
It is like giving everyone in a stadium a VIP ticket to the front row, but not actually building any extra seats. The crush at the front is going to be dangerous. So, knowing all this, if I am a corporate energy buyer sitting at my desk right now, staring at a mandate from my board to be carbon neutral by 2030, what is the actual strategy? If the advice is act fast, does that just mean throw money at the first developer who answers the phone?
Not at all, and that is a crucial distinction. Acting fast does not mean acting recklessly. It means fundamentally changing your internal processes. Historically, a big corporation might take 12 to 18 months to approve a major energy contract. It would go through procurement, legal, the sustainability team, the executive board, back to legal, over and over. You cannot do that anymore. By the time you get the final signature, the project is gone.
The musical chair's music stopped, and you are left standing.
Exactly. Buyers need to streamline their internal approvals. They need to have their board pre-approve certain pricing thresholds and risk profiles. When a good project hits the market, the procurement team needs the authority to lock it down in weeks, not months. It also means getting creative. If you cannot find a massive utility scale solar farm, maybe you start looking at aggregated smaller projects or investing directly in a developer to guarantee your spot in line.
It requires a level of agility that massive corporations are traditionally terrible at. But I want to pivot slightly and look at the broader picture here. We are talking about this frantic rush, this corporate scramble for clean electrons. But what is the hidden cost of this speed? Are we so obsessed with deploying capital and hitting carbon targets that we are ignoring the collateral damage?
That is the most important philosophical question of this entire transition. When you prioritize pure speed, things break. We are seeing massive pushback from local communities across the country. Developers are trying to lease thousands of acres of prime farmland for solar panels or putting towering wind turbines near residential areas. Because everyone is in such a rush, there is often very little genuine community engagement. It becomes a transaction rather than a partnership.
And that creates a fierce backlash. People start viewing renewable energy not as a savior for the climate, but as an invasive corporate land grab. We have seen counties completely ban new solar or wind developments because they feel steamrolled by out of state developers.
Exactly. And that backlash slows everything down even more, compounding the very bottleneck the developers were trying to beat. It is a vicious cycle. Furthermore, this rush forces us to rely heavily on overseas supply chains that might not meet ethical or environmental standards. If you need solar panels tomorrow, you might not ask too many questions about how the polysilicon was mined or manufactured.
It is a profound moral tension. We are racing against the clock of climate change, which demands absolute speed. But the sheer velocity required to win that race might trample over local ecosystems, community rights, and labor ethics. It forces us to ask, is a poorly executed green transition better than a slow, meticulous one?
The climate science says we do not have the luxury of slow and meticulous, but the reality of human sociology says that if you force infrastructure down people's throats, they will eventually stop you. The most successful buyers and developers right now are the ones who realize that acting fast actually requires slowing down at the very beginning to build real relationships. If a project has strong local support, it is far less likely to get bogged down in lawsuits or permitting hell. In a twisted way, taking the time to do it right is actually the fastest path to the finish line.
That is a fascinating insight. The shortcut is actually a detour. So, looking ahead, let us say a buyer navigates this minefield. They move fast internally, they accept the shared risk, they find a project with good community backing, and they sign the deal. What does the landscape look like for them 5 years from now?
5 years from now, the buyers who took the leap today will look like absolute geniuses. As grid congestion worsens and demand from AI continues its exponential curve, the value of those secured electrons is going to skyrocket. They will have locked in their energy costs, secured their sustainability claims, and insulated themselves from the extreme volatility of the spot market. But the buyers who are sitting on the sidelines right now, waiting for the market to calm down, waiting for prices to drop or the queue to clear up, they are in for a brutal awakening.
Because the market is not going to calm down anytime soon.
No, the complexity is the new normal. The era of cheap, easy, risk-free renewable energy procurement is permanently over. We are building the largest machine in human history, a completely decarbonized global power grid, while simultaneously running our entire modern civilization on it. It is going to be messy, expensive, and incredibly difficult.
It is like trying to change the engines on a jet plane while it is flying at 30,000 feet. You have to be fast, you have to be precise, and you absolutely cannot afford to hesitate. We have covered incredible ground today, from the massive appetite of data centers devouring the grid to the multi-year traffic jams for interconnection and the harsh new reality of risk sharing. The message is loud and clear. The clean energy market is not waiting for anyone to catch their breath.
It truly is a race, but it is a race that will define the economic and environmental landscape of the next century. The decisions being made in corporate boardrooms today, the risks being calculated right this second, are literally drawing the map of our future energy infrastructure.
And that leaves us with a lingering thought. If the most powerful corporations in the world are currently fighting tooth and nail just to secure a fraction of the clean energy they need, what happens to everyone else? As the tech giants and industrial titans buy up the grid, will clean energy become a luxury resource? We are moving fast, but we have to ask ourselves, who exactly are we leaving behind in the dark?
On a solar coaster, come along for the ride.
This episode of The Solar Coaster is narrated using AI-generated technology, representing Anna Covert and Alex Herrera. The material presented is aggregated from publicly available solar industry news sources. All commentary reflects reported industry developments and does not constitute personal opinions, investment advice, or endorsements by the hosts or
Solar
producers.
Coaster is proudly sponsored by Sun Energy Today, redefining what solar means for business and infrastructure. We engineer and deliver large-scale clean energy solutions, from megawatt solar farms to advanced graphene storage, designed for resilience, performance, and measurable return. Sun Energy Today, built to power what's next. Learn more at sunenergytoday.com.